Welcome to the Homestead. It's Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. I'm Doug.
I'm Stacy.
And today we're going to talk about homestead animals, and we're going to talk about the cold, because a lot of you guys are asking questions about animals in the cold. How are you keeping your animals warm? I saw one post where they brought every single animal inside their house. No, I'm just kidding. But we just want to talk to you guys.
But I know you guys think about it, don't
I know you do, but we want to talk to you guys a little bit about the resiliency of your homestead animals, and some of the precautions that you need to take in order to have the healthiest flock. So it's first off the bat, we're going to talk about chickens. This is a Rhode Island Red. These are very hardy, good chickens. They're good for meat. They're dual purpose birds, and they're actually good for the cold weather.
Yeah, chickens are really resilient. You know, you see them a lot, how they kind of fluff their feathers up like that. Well, basically, they're kind of making like air pocket between their feathers and their skin to kind of help insulate it. And I always kind of think of that when you see the chickens fluff up like that.
It's called a thermal break.
And what's so cool about it is I always think, remember when down coats first came in, what was it, like in the 70s or something, when down coats were all the rage? Basically, it's just like that. When you put a down coat, how they keep you so warm, it's the same principle.
Yeah, so each chicken produces about 8 BTUs per chicken per hour.
And that's
so if you have 10 of them, that's like 80 BTUs.
Or if you want to think of it like in a light bulb, it's about, for a chicken, about 10 watts or so. So if you had 6 chickens, it'd be 60-watt light bulb, or 8 chickens, 80-watt light bulb, or 10 chickens, 100-watt light bulb.
So the thing is if you guys are keeping heat lamps inside of your coops, what happens is the chickens also create a winter undergarment, you know, like a protective, like their Under Armour, like you guys buy at the store. But so if you keep heat lamps in there, their body doesn't adjust to the cold temperatures outside, and it causes them not to produce those feathers and that extra layer, and then that causes them, if your power goes out in your coop, you'll end up losing birds because they have never acclimated and let their body do what their body needs to do.
We did a video on air conditioning. Kind of the
it makes you weak. Yeah.
So
it's the exact same principle. So we just wanted to talk about chickens really quick. Some of the other benefits or ways that you can help them regulate themselves is to make sure that your coop doesn't have any drafts.
Wind is not good for chickens or any livestock, and also is keep them from getting wet or damp. So you want to make sure that you have clean straw in your coop, because it makes a big difference. Because here with winter, we'd go ahead and we put our straw in there, we let it go from fall to spring, and then we change it out again and use it for compost.
It's a deep mulch system, so we're just constantly adding the straw on top, and then we'll clean it out when the time comes, and then we'll put it on the garden.
And then another really important thing is the feeding. What I like to do is supplement the chickens, because I make my own feed, and I supplement them with whole non-GMO corn, and I also do sunflower seeds. The black oil sunflower seeds are great. I always add it all year round because it's also good to help with the quality of your eggs. They taste better and are just great. But with the black oil sunflower seed, they're very high in fat, so I'll make sure I give them extra black oil sunflower seeds as well as the whole corn, because it will help with their body heat.
Yeah,
right?
The whole corn definitely helps them produce more body heat, but in the summertime, you want to shy away from using that with your chickens. You'll use a cracked corn or a rolled corn. So we just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about chickens. Now we're going to move on to some of the other animals that we have on the homestead, and hopefully you guys are getting some of those nuggets. So the next one we're going to talk about is the ducks.
Quack, quack. Yep.
You can see them in the background there. Basically, ducks are very resilient.
Very, very resilient. We learned that this year for a fact.
Yeah, I mean, some of you guys were really worried that our ducks were on the pond when it was 0 and it's 4 and 5 and negative 10 and 12. And they've actually stayed at the pond for like almost 2 weeks, this whole cold spell that we have. And they were in the water for a long time of that, until finally the pond won and froze up completely.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. They have something, I guess, explain it. I get so confused. Explain what it is.
It's basically like the blood goes down the outside of the leg and then it comes up through the inside. So it's almost like a tubular effect to keep their feet from freezing and getting cold.
Yeah, the arteries and the veins, and how it just kind of, and then it keeps all the warmth in their core of their body.
Yeah, so when you guys see them laying around and they're tucked up, they tuck their feet up into their body, and that's what keeps their feet warm also. And they're just like chickens in the regard that they fluff up and they pull all that air in, and then their body warms that air up and creates a thermal break. They are able to withstand some very cold temperatures.
Geese and ducks.
Yeah, and that's why they also are a lot of fat on them, right? So like you guys know that a lot of people render duck fat is because it's a mechanism built into their DNA to help keep them warm and to feed them when food supply is low. We were going out and we were throwing buckets of feed for them, and we were trying to bring some pans of water out so they could
feed.
Wash their bills, right? So, you know, they're very resilient. So we basically have left them out there. We didn't lose one to any prey, and they're all healthy and happy right now. And we're getting a little bit of a thaw, so we thought we would share the duck story with you guys.
Because they are loving it. Everyone's loving it. They're out today. So are we.
Yeah, I don't even have gloves on right now. My hands are a little bit cold, but now we're going to move on over to the sheep. We would have a duck here like the chicken thing, because that was pretty cool, but they're pretty not really hanging out with us.
They like to hang out with their little
Daisy's our only friend. She basically kicked us to the curb.
She's with her pals.
All right, let's move over to the sheep. All right, it's Bronco Doug riding his sheep through the pastures on the homestead. Now we're moving on to the sheep. Now obviously sheep can handle the cold. Some people say that the hair sheep can't handle the cold as well as a wool sheep, and just like anything else, they grow these are hair sheep. These are called Katahdins. The reason why we use these, I'll get to this really quick, is because Katahdins are very good sheep. They're great for the meat. They're great mothers. They produce 2 sheep to every birthing, and sometimes 3. So if you have 3 though, you got to kind of keep your eye on them, because they aren't that good when they have 3, so you might have to intervene. So they grow thick hair in the winter time, and they're very cold tolerant. They've never had a problem. Now the only problem that I see on some of the channels that I watch and some of the information that I see out there is people, okay, here, I want you to think about it like this. Like if you go to the hospital and you have a child yourself, and immediately they take that child away and they do all this stuff to it and they wipe it down and they do all this and do all that, they're breaking that bond that the child has with the mother, right? So that's why like birthing at home right now is huge, because people want to have the baby on their skin and touching them, and it's proven, you know, that is the way that they bond, and that's the whole process, right? So it's the same thing with your sheep. In the coldest of winter days, we've had lambs here on the homestead, and we do not get involved. We let nature take its course. They clean their lambs off. Now, if you have a first-time mom, you might pin her up or something. Just kind of keep an eye on her, make sure that the lamb is getting the colostrum. That's the first 24 hours worth of milk, because that is what's going to set the stage, if you will, for the lamb's immune system and the ability for it to stay warmed up and to not get sick and stuff like that. So the colostrum is very important. So like I said, let's just let nature take its course. Sure, there are times when we have to intervene and when we have to help out, but for 98 or 99% of the time, you can just let these animals do what they need to do, and they're gonna be just fine. I know you guys love your animals, and it's like you're fighting it, that you want to be involved and that you want to, you know, intervene, but just please just let your animals do the thing, because it makes them more resilient. If you leave that lamb alone, it'll be closer to the mom. The mom will make sure it's getting the colostrum. They'll form their bond, and then the baby right away gets accepted into the pack, into the flock, and then it just makes for a whole better environment for all of them. So these are our sheep here, and we're going to move on now. I'm actually even going to talk about the bees. And yes, even your bees are something that are relatively resilient on the homestead in the wintertime. Did you know that bees are like the second most cold tolerant being on planet Earth? They actually cluster inside of their hives in the wintertime, and they create the heat, and then they move around the hive bodies, around the brood, and then that's how they feed, and they stay together really tight. So a quick tip, if you are raising bees, don't go out to your hive and knock on your hive to see if you hear them, okay? Sometimes if you knock, you could actually separate that cluster, and it could cause problems, a die-off in your hive, and it could be pretty serious. So just try not to do that. I know it's very tempting. It's just a little nugget, a little tip for you guys. Now, bees also create winter bees, okay? So if your hive is nice and healthy going into wintertime, what happens is it'll start producing bees with more fat and a little bigger, a little hardier, and they're actually called winter bees. And don't believe anything I say. Make sure you do your homework and look this stuff up. So on the homestead, you know, we take care of our bees all through the summer and spring. We harvest the honey, and then we leave them alone and let them do their thing. Yes, sometimes you're going to have losses. That's just beekeeping in general, but we just don't try to baby everything on your homestead. So we just let them alone, and then we look for them in the spring, or even on warm days we'll come out before spring hits, and if they're flying around, we know that the hive is pretty healthy. Now we're going to go and we're going to talk about the horses. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is the horses. Now horses, just like all the other animals on the homestead, they create their own heat too. They actually grow a layer of extra hair to keep them warm.
In the fall, as their coat gets thicker and thicker and thicker, and they get these long hairs, and that's what helps with these large livestock like horses and cows. It helps to insulate them, and they do get a really thick. And it's so funny, I like to look at the different animals, and like Sadie, our Palomino, she's much thicker than Smokey. Smokey isn't quite as thick.
He's a standard bred mix.
Right, and it's interesting, and it keeps them very, very warm, and I especially like it when they get the whiskers under their chin.
Yeah, so you'll even see in the springtime, just like the lambs, they'll actually start to shed their hair as they prepare for the summer heat.
So that's why it's so important, especially, and we didn't talk about it with the sheep, when it does get to spring, you know, you need to get that coat off of them because they do get hot. You'll see the sheep rubbing against the fence. Same with the horses. I get my comb, you know, and you brush and you want to get that coat off of them. I know a funny time when you be riding Smokey in the springtime when they start losing it and he's behind in the buggy and all that hair flies in your face because they're trying to lose it all.
It starts ding, 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 ding.
But I mean, same thing with them. They need to be out of the wind. They don't want to, they don't like the wind. They'll go into the barn. Just as long as they have shelter, these animals are very, very resilient.
That's one thing we want to stress the most of, is that we're not just saying throw your animals out and let them just, you know, take care of themselves. What we're saying is don't involve yourself so much to where you're making them weak. Let their body's natural process, the way they were made and intended to live, let it take its course, but always try to provide them at least a 3-sided shelter with a roof on it to get out of the elements. Even if you have cows or Dexters or chickens or guineas or ducks, just whatever, just in case they want to get out of the elements, that they have the chance to do that.
And Sadie is very inquisitive about the camera today.
Okay, now as we wrap up this video, we want to stress to you guys how important it is to give your animals water. Make sure they have water during the wintertime. You might think, oh, they could eat some snow, or oh, they're not needing that much water. Animals can crash quick in the wintertime. They dehydrate very easily, and it's a lot harder to see. There's not a lot of panting and stuff like that. So just make sure your animals are well fed. We gave you some chicken and duck secrets on whole kernel corn.
And sunflower seeds, black oil sunflower seeds. And it's so very important because they're eating a lot of this hay too, the large livestock. They need, because they normally get that water from the grasses,
yeah.
So they need a lot more water, and you'll be amazed at how much more water a lot of times they'll drink in the wintertime. And also increasing their food for the winter because their body's trying to keep warm.
Right.
So you don't want to ration their food. Make sure, you know, I always make sure I give them all a little bit more because they definitely need it. And like we were saying before, they are so resilient. You know, a lot of people talk about horses and things and how much care it takes, and they're really hard to take care of. Horses are like the easiest things for us because, you know, we let them do their own thing, and then we you know, give them a place to stay and shelter them and give them the food. And all our animals are thriving. They all go good together. They are very peaceful and calm and happy, and it seems to be working very well. And I just think try not to baby them quite so much because that's what makes them weak.
Right, so you let them build up their own natural defenses, their own natural resiliencies, and you know, only when it's absolutely necessary do you want to step in and do anything other than what nature has already provided them the ability to do. Because
that was our first mistake when we first got here. You know, we were, you know, trying to help with them delivering the babies, you know, when we're having our lambs, and then it was like, it was the worst thing we could have done.
Yeah, it just creates weaker livestock.
Yeah.
So, you know, guys, you could agree with these tips or not agree with them. We've been doing it. It's been over 7 years. We're successful at it, and we're just trying to share these tips and tricks with you guys. We know that your heart bleeds for them, that you love them, that they're part of your family on the homestead, but please just let them do their thing. Hopefully you guys got some tips from this. Maybe you won't agree with it, but it might get you thinking. As always, you can check us out on
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and give us some of your tips as you're doing for winter to keep your animals dry and warm and comfy.
Alive and kicking. Hey, and real quick, one of the biggest causes of fires on the homesteads are those heat lamps in chicken coops.
Hey guys, thanks for watching our video. You might want to check out these videos.
And if you want to become a homestead homie, click the picture of us below.
We will see you tomorrow.